The night should have been ordinary. A quiet dinner, 2 plates set on the table, a candle flickering in the center. But when police arrived, the house was unnervingly still. The front door was left slightly open. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Nothing was broken, nothing out of place. The food was untouched. The air felt heavy, like something had happened here, but the walls refused to tell the story. In the bedroom, Melissa Parker lay motionless. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, just silence. And outside, sitting on the porch with his hands pressed together, was her husband Brandon. His shirt was still crisp, his face blank. No panic, no visible shock, just a man staring into the night, as if he already knew what would happen next. Because this wasn't random, it wasn't an accident. It was the breaking point of a marriage built on a secret too big to ignore. And as investigators dug deeper, they would uncover a past Melissa never thought would resurface. A past that led to a confrontation she wouldn't walk away from. Stay with us as we break down what happened inside this home, the truth behind the discovery, and how a hidden past led to a devastating end. And if you follow true crime, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next. Melissa Parker had always been independent, the kind of woman who knew what she wanted and worked hard to get it. In her early 20s, she was ambitious, outgoing, and full of life. She had a small but strong circle of friends, loved traveling, and wasn't afraid to take risks. That's what made her fall for Brandon Caldwell so quickly. He was charming, confident, and said all the right things. Their romance moved fast. 1 minute they were dating, and before long, they were planning a wedding. On the outside, it was a fairy tale. Melissa posted smiling photos of them together, showing off the perfect relationship. Brandon was attentive, always by her side, always protective. But the people who knew her best noticed something change. Melissa, once so full of energy, seemed quieter. She stopped going out as much. Certain friends disappeared from her social media. The way she dressed shifted. She wore less of what she used to love, choosing more modest outfits instead. She never spoke about it directly, but there was an unspoken understanding. Brandon was traditional. He liked things a certain way. And then there was her past, something she had never told him about. Before she met Brandon, Melissa had used OnlyFans for a short time. She wasn't ashamed of it. It had helped her financially, given her freedom, and it was something she had moved on from long before she became a wife. But she also knew Brandon. She knew his views, his family, the way they valued reputation over everything. Telling him was never an option. She had put that part of her life behind her, locked away like a chapter never meant to be reopened. She believed it would stay that way. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And Melissa had no idea that the past she thought she had left behind was already on its way back to her doorstep. Brandon Caldwell's world changed in an instant. It was a normal day at work when a coworker made a passing remark, something meant as a joke. The words weren't supposed to mean anything, but they did. The moment he heard them, something inside him shifted. The laughter around him faded, but his thoughts sharpened. He forced a smile, pretending it didn't bother him. But the second he was alone, he reached for his phone. The search started with hesitation, but the results came quickly. Melissa's past was right there, laid out in front of him. An inactive OnlyFans account, buried under years of distance, but still visible. His wife, the woman he built his life with, had once lived a life he never knew about. It didn't matter that it was before him. It didn't matter that she had moved on. What mattered was that she had never told him. And now, he couldn't stop looking. Everything about their marriage felt different after that moment. He didn't say anything right away. He needed time to process, to understand why this felt like betrayal, but something inside him cracked. Sitting across from her at dinner, he found himself staring at her, analyzing every expression, every movement. The warmth in his voice disappeared. His touch was gone. The house, once filled with laughter and conversation, turned cold. Melissa noticed. She asked if he was okay. She reached for him the way she always did, but he barely responded. He said he was fine, but he wasn't. And she knew it. At night, while she slept, he sat in the dark, scrolling through every trace of her past. He wasn't just looking at the images. He was reading comments, seeing how strangers had once spoken about his wife. It felt humiliating. It felt like betrayal. And the more he obsessed, the angrier he became. His life, his marriage, his family's respect, his own reputation, it all felt like a lie. Melissa felt the distance growing between them but had no idea why. The conversations were shorter. His presence in the house felt heavier. He barely looked at her. She assumed it was stress, something that would pass. She didn't push. She didn't ask. That night, she came home later than usual. The house was dark except for the faint glow of a laptop screen. Brandon sat in the living room, motionless. The weight in the air was immediate, pressing against her chest before she even stepped inside. Then she saw it. Her past, pulled up on the screen. The images, the account, the name she hadn't used in years. Brandon's hands were clenched, his breathing controlled but slow. He had been waiting. Melissa opened her mouth to explain, to say something, anything, but the words never came. Her past wasn't just uncovered. It had become a wound, and she had no idea how deep it had already cut. Melissa Parker felt something was wrong, but she couldn't put it into words. She had spent the last hour watching her husband move around their home in silence, his presence heavy, his face unreadable. The man she had married wasn't acting like himself, and the unease settled deep in her stomach. At 7:28 p.m., she picked up her phone and sent a message to Samantha, the one person who would understand. She kept it short. She didn't want to overthink it. Brandon is acting really weird tonight. I feel like I don't even know him. Samantha responded quickly, asking what happened, but Melissa didn't answer. She was already heading home. At 7:42 p.m., security cameras captured Melissa stepping out of her car, locking the door behind her and walking toward the house. It was the last time she was seen alive. Neighbors would later recall hearing faint arguing. Nothing alarming, just muffled voices, tension thick in the air. Then, silence. No crashing sounds, no screams for help. Just an eerie, unnatural stillness. Time passed. The world outside continued as normal, unaware of what had just happened inside that house. But at 10:19 p.m., a phone call shattered the illusion of normalcy. Brandon didn't call for help. He didn't call 911. Instead, he called his brother. His voice was flat, his words simple, but the weight behind them was impossible to ignore. He told him he messed up. His brother hesitated before asking what he meant, but Brandon didn't explain. The call ended, and for the next several minutes, nothing happened. At 10:45 p.m., police arrived. Flashing lights illuminated the quiet street, reflecting off the windows of the Caldwell home. Brandon was outside, sitting on the front steps. His expression was calm, too calm. His hands were resting on his knees. His clothes were clean. When officers approached, he didn't ask for help, didn't show any signs of distress. Inside the house, Melissa was motionless. The warmth of life had already left her body. Brandon had his story ready. He told the police what happened in a steady voice, his tone controlled, his words careful. But something was off. The details didn't line up, and as officers examined the scene, it became clear that his version of events was falling apart. The evidence told a different story, one Brandon wouldn't be able to escape. Brandon Caldwell sat in the interrogation room, his arms crossed over his chest, his expression controlled. He had already rehearsed what he would say. He claimed that when he confronted Melissa about her past, she lost her temper. He said she attacked him first, that he had no choice but to defend himself. He made sure to sound composed, reasonable, even regretful. But the evidence in front of investigators painted a different picture. There were no defensive wounds on Brandon, no scratches, no marks that suggested Melissa had fought him. His skin was unmarked, his hands unscathed. Melissa, however, had bruises on her wrists, on her arms. Not the kind left by self-defense, the kind left by restraint. The more investigators looked into Brandon's version of events, the more it crumbled. Then came Melissa's best friend, Samantha. She stepped forward with something that changed everything, her last text exchange with Melissa. The message from that night was short but telling. Melissa had been worried. She had sensed something wasn't right. She had reached out, but she never got the chance to say more. Investigators pulled Brandon's phone records next. What they found was unsettling. In the days leading up to Melissa's final moments, he had been fixated on one thing: deleting, searching, wiping away the past. His browser history revealed repeated searches about removing OnlyFans accounts, about erasing digital footprints. He had spent hours reading through forums, looking for ways to make something disappear. But the most damning discovery came from inside the Caldwell home itself. Their security system had cameras in key areas: the front door, the hallway, the living room. But on the night Melissa never walked back out, the living room camera had been turned off. Someone had manually disabled it. Detectives reviewed past recordings. In previous weeks, the footage showed something troubling. Melissa and Brandon's arguments had been growing more heated. His voice had been sharp, filled with accusations. Her body language had changed, tense, hesitant, walking on eggshells. The final piece of the puzzle was found on Brandon's laptop. Detective Jordan Reeves scrolled through the search history, pausing when he saw a phrase that stood out. It was typed just days before Melissa's final moments. A chilling question. Can deleted accounts be traced back? There was no mistaking what this was. This wasn't about betrayal. It was about control. And when Melissa refused to be controlled, Brandon made a decision that sealed his fate. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back wall, their cameras lowered but ready. Melissa's family sat in the front row, their eyes red from sleepless nights and endless grief. They had waited months for this moment, the moment when the truth would be laid out in front of the world. The prosecution wasted no time. They described Brandon Caldwell not as a heartbroken husband, but as a man who had built his marriage on control. He hadn't discovered Melissa's past. He had uncovered it, dug through it, obsessed over it. And when he realized he couldn't erase it, he lashed out in the only way he knew how. Jurors watched as the evidence was presented piece by piece. The text messages, the phone records, the internet searches, the security footage that had been mysteriously disabled on the night Melissa never walked out of their home, the injuries that contradicted Brandon's claims of self-defense. Then, the most gut-wrenching moment of the trial. Melissa's mother took the stand. She didn't speak right away. She held on to the last words her daughter had sent, looking down at them as if reading them one more time would bring Melissa back. When she finally read them aloud, the courtroom was silent. Brandon didn't react. He sat motionless, his face blank, as if detaching himself from the weight of what he had done. But no amount of silence could erase the truth. His defense team tried to argue. They called it a moment of weakness, a tragic mistake. But the evidence was too strong. His original story had changed too many times. His actions before and after Melissa's final moments spoke louder than any excuse his lawyers could come up with. And finally, the moment came. The jury filed back in. The judge asked if they had reached a verdict. The foreperson stood, cleared their throat, and delivered the words Melissa's family had been waiting to hear. Guilty. Brandon's face barely changed, but for the first time since his arrest, his hands trembled. He had lost control. The sentence followed swiftly. Life in prison. No chance of parole. Melissa's family held each other as the courtroom emptied, the weight of justice finally settling over them. It wouldn't bring Melissa back. It wouldn't undo what had been done. But it was something. Because Melissa wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a liar. She was a woman who had a past, just like everyone else. And for that, she lost her future. Melissa's face flashes across the screen, her smile full of life, her eyes bright with the dreams she never got to fulfill. A woman who had once been independent, confident, and full of potential, now reduced to a cautionary tale of control and obsession. Her story is more than just a crime. It's a reminder that no one should have to live in fear of their past. No one should have to justify who they once were to be accepted for who they are now. Yet, Melissa never got that chance. Her life should not have ended because of someone else's inability to let go of control. Her past should not have been the reason she lost her future. If this case has left an impact, let's make sure Melissa's story isn't forgotten. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to keep these stories alive. Because voices like hers deserve to be heard.